Having a mentor is an essential part of career growth, especially for the under-networked tech worker. Our guest co-founded a tech mentorship and recruiting platform with a mission to democratize the professional network by giving every knowledge worker in the world a world-class network. Come on, you guys know it's all about social capital, right? And definitely mentorship matters. Let's have a delicious conversation about this, shall we? Stay tuned for the Startup Life Live show. Let's glow, everyone. Woohoo! Hello and welcome to the Startup Life Live show. I'm your host, Ande Lyons, 4 times founder and startup champion to founders around the world. And after raising 4 businesses of my own, I am in awe and wonder of what you are going through every single day, navigating the wild landscape of entrepreneurship and your founder journey and everything you're doing to manage problem solving. Oh my gosh. Let me just get the clappers out right now for you. Amazing. And thank you for carving out time to tune in to the Startup Life Live show. This is a great opportunity to up your founder game. We learn a lot from these conversations with diverse founders and diverse investors, bringing the gems and all their rut-rows and woohoos to the conversation so that you can learn not just upping your founder game, but you're going to go, oh my gosh, I'm not alone. It's so easy to feel isolated as a founder. You can get caught in the silo. What are you going to do? Turn to your team members, or in my case, the plants in my room or the cat, and go, you wouldn't believe what happened. No, you've got to always put that brave face out there. So when you come on and tune into the Startup Life Live show, you're going to hear some great stories. And you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I am so not alone. So thank you for carving out time, and a big mwah and yoo-hoo to the video live folks right now, and the replay video, and the podcast listeners. Again, I am so grateful for your time and presence on the show. Be sure to let me know what you think of each episode, okay? And what you learned. And if you need any introductions, I am here, because we're always talking about social capital is much more important than financial capital. It really is. Your network is your net worth. So if you're tuning in via YouTube and you haven't done so already, I'd be so grateful if you subscribed and clicked that notification button. That would mean a lot to me. Thank you so much. And those of you who are tuning in to the podcast, oh my gosh, it's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, etc. Your rating, your reviews, all of that really helps and just means the world to me as well. So thank you for that. And how do you know whenever I post a new show? Well, you're a member of the Startup Life Live meetup group. We've got 655 members over there getting alerts whenever I post a new show. And it's not just an alert, it is a deep dive into each guest and their background and what they're bringing. So if, depending on your industry, you'll learn right away if a guest is going to be chatting about things that you need to know for your business. So again, links are in the show notes. Just hop over to the meetup group and search for Startup Life Live. And for those of you in the US of A, if you are a woman-owned business and want to get certified by the gold standard, you got to go to the WeBank application. And I have helped not only myself with my own businesses, but I've helped dozens of women founders with this application. And it's not an easy application, I'm just saying. So if you'd like some help, be sure to reach out to me, Ande at andelyons.com, because you can, if you're a B2B business, you could be leaving money on the table. There are government and corporate contracts that want to do business with women-owned, women-led businesses. So reach out, okay? And we'll chat about that. I think it's time that we just bring in our wonderful guests. So let me throw up some artwork, and I'm going to tell you all about this phenomenal man that we've got joining us today. It's the one, the only, Kirk Fernandes. He's the co-founder of Merit, a tech mentorship and recruiting platform for the under-networked with 6,000 members, the majority of which are women and people of color. Merit is self-funded by its community and team. Kirk has a decade of product leadership at Microsoft, Hightower, and VTS. He has mentored and managed hundreds of product managers, designers, and engineers throughout his career, and he's deeply passionate about building products, brands, and teams. Oh boy, we're going to learn a lot from him. Welcome to the show, Kirk. Woo!
Hi. How you doing?
I'm so happy to see you today.
Likewise.
Where are you hailing from?
New York City, Lower Manhattan.
Yay. Right down the road from me here in Boston. Those tuning in, let us know where you're hailing from today as well. We'd love to be able to, in my case, blow you a kiss and do a clapper for you. And be sure, folks, if you're a founder tuning in, do not hesitate to amplify your brand. Throw your business name, one-liner, and website URL into the comments, and we'll showcase and celebrate you. And also, if you're tuning in live, pop your comments and questions into the comment threads. That way, whatever questions you have, we're going to learn from them as well. So thanks again, everyone, for tuning in. We're going to get right into Kirk. Oh my gosh, Kirk, you were doing well at all these other companies, payroll benefits, vacation days. Like, what the heck? Why did you launch a business and become an entrepreneur?
The start was very chaotic. I essentially got my green card and my tour of duty was ending, and I realized I wanted to start a company. So I just quit my job without a plan or a co-founder. And that kind of triggered a very long wandering the year desert before I stumbled upon Merit and my co-founder, Ande. But that first year was quite chaotic. So it wasn't a very clean story. I just did it because I felt like it in that moment. And a lot of immigrants go through that too as well. Getting that green card is huge.
It is really huge. And so all of a sudden you said, okay, I've met the requirements.
Yeah.
I am a permanent resident here in the US of A. Did you have any entrepreneurs as role models, or did you have signals of entrepreneurship in your own personality as a kid? Like why?
Both my dad and my brother are like real estate agents and like self-entrepreneurs and salespeople. So a little bit of that, but not really on the tech side. Like there's a big pressure in Canada and in Waterloo to kind of get a big tech job, get a very stable job. A lot of immigrants talk about, getting a very professional law degree.
Of course.
My parents were not very happy that I decided to do entrepreneurship at that time.
That usually happens. I mentored a young woman who's got a phenomenal company out there. She'll be on the show in a few weeks, Raja from Invisaware. And I mean, she came out of college with a dual degree, and I think electrical engineering and computer science. And Google was like, please come work for us. And her parents, were from Egypt. So she's a first generation immigrant. And she's like, no, I'm going to start a business. And they were like, no, that's not why we moved here.
Totally. They were like, you would throw away salary and benefits and a really good job at Microsoft. Like, why would you do that? So the immigrant pressure is very real. And I don't know if I've still haven't fully convinced them at this point, but we'll see,
Well, so now, what was that year like where you said, okay, did you try a few ideas? Did you have things percolating? Did you go through some accelerators? What happened?
Tried a lot of weird, dumb, stupid ideas. Most of them failed, ran out of money, had a wedding, used all my savings, freelance, right? Like tried to do co-founder dating, very chaotic, very weird. Thank God I found Randy, and kind of the genesis of the idea was thinking back to my team and being a manager of like, sharing my network with my team, a very diverse team that's harder than a homogenous team. And Merit is like the network in the box that I kind of gave my team, like product managers. And if I'm struggling with that, if I'm struggling with that as a manager, I bet tons of managers are struggling with it.
Of course.
And no one tells you managing like a diverse team is harder than a homogenous team. No one ever tells you that as a manager, right? So like Merit is that diverse network that can
talk about that a little. Talk about that a little. So
you just need to know more. If you're managing people from different demographics and groups and roles, you just need to be a better manager. And it's much harder to manage a diverse team. So I was struggling with it as a manager of like mostly women, people not in the tech background, right? Like I would introduce my women to other women further along in other companies.
Excellent.
So Merit is like doing that at scale. That's kind of the genesis of it. But to go back, that year was very painful and financially quite expensive.
But you got married.
I did get married.
Oh,
also cost money. Also cost money marriage. Yeah.
Oh, hi, honey. Let's get married, and don't be counting on me for any financial support because it won't be happening.
All of our savings to the wedding, and then like all of my other money going towards Merit. So not the best, but turned out great.
Oh my gosh. But that's a big deal. So when we take these risks, everybody, and we've got a beloved in our life, those are some serious conversations because they have to be on board, because the last thing you want to do is start getting hate mail from them, right?
Totally. And merit would not be possible without like the support of my significant other, Donnie. So that's huge.
Absolutely. Yeah. And plus, our beloveds are going to love us no matter what happens.
Yeah.
They're not, going along in our slipstream, whatever you call that, because of our notoriety as a founder. They're there because they love who you are and the fact that you're trying to pursue a dream. I always bring that up, Kirk, because I have a great post on Medium called "When Your Loved One Isn't an Entrepreneur." And so it's so important that you have these conversations, especially if you're taking money out of a 401k or charging up the credit cards to help support your startup.
And I think also explaining to your spouse and partner the journey, the financial trade-offs, and like what is the long-term plan. Like a lot of that is just education. Not everyone understands it. Like I didn't even understand it. I was very naive at the start, and now I understand it very clearly. But just communicating that, right?
When did you launch Merit?
Randy and I got together in 2019, and we started almost like the summer, almost like a mentorship program we ran manually. And we ran it as a program first to understand and do it kind of Wizard of Oz style. And then slowly like automate each part over time. And now we have a fully featured live mentorship platform that's been functional essentially since 2021. So we've gone through a lot of pivots and the maze of product market fit. And then the first version was just a program we ran manually, which is
oh my God. Well, we're going to get into those details, but I got to find out the story about how you met your co-founder, because folks, this is a big relationship that's going to last a while, and you've got to come together with and work together in a way that's just unique.
Through luck, dumb luck, I was working on a prototype, showing it to a friend. I showed it to her, and she's like, "You should talk to Randy. He's building the same thing you're building, but like slightly different." So we kind of met like that, which is a unique co-founding story, which is really around similar problems with different angles. Mine was the more manager side. He was placing thousands of people as the CTO of this recruiting platform and seeing them churn due to lack of network. So the two different sides of the same coin, essentially.
I love that.
And we kind of threw away our ideas and kind of started from scratch, which is kind of unique as well.
That is and he's local?
Too. Local as well, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, you've got to have like a shrine somewhere for the person who introduced you.
But Belinda Jew has equity in our company. So don't
goddess Belinda, way to connect the dots. This is where the magic happens with founders and startups.
Pure luck, like pure dumb luck. Like I don't have a great story around that. We just magic.
I don't know if it's okay. You call it dumb luck, but I might call it kismet or serendipity. Like sometimes an idea is meant to happen and people come together because, we can do more together than individually in these things.
Totally.
And, with that same, idea and vision and mission and purpose. So I love your story, Something Fierce. And
almost
I don't think
divine.
It's random.
Maybe it's more divine.
I would say divine. Absolutely. Hey, Ruth, how are you? How's the family? How's Nairobi? I'm so happy to see you here as always. You're my wonderful community ambassador and always making sure anybody who shows up live or later gets a big warm hug from us here at the Startup Life Live show. So let's talk about that. It's very unique what you were just sharing about what you and Randy did, because because founders, when you wake up every day, you have to be on purpose. You have to have a mission behind your work, because there's some awful days and you won't get through those big dips without having this as a North Star. So I know you had challenges, managing that diverse team, and you saw there are things, and you had as you said, like a sort of a mentor in a box situation. But why is it your passion? Why is it your North Star, Kirk?
Ultimately, I realize that careers are really around people and the people you work with, and what's stopping people from working with each other. And Merit's kind of like my idea around democratizing this professional network, where I was very lucky to go to Waterloo to work at Microsoft. These networks unlock so much opportunity for me. And all I want is everyone to have the same level of opportunity. That's what we called it, merit. Like, what if the tech industry was an actual meritocracy where everyone got equal opportunity? So it's kind of a joke, but it's also kind of serious. Like, I do want it to be a meritocracy, and that's kind of what Merit's mission is. But it's very simple. It's not a complicated idea. It's very hard to do it.
And that was a delicious explanation for it.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And so you and Randy did something I think is very unique to create your MVP, is that you
Yeah.
came together and said, well, let's be in it ourselves. Let's test
Yeah.
it out ourselves first and play this game.
We screened every member and mentor up until like 100 on both sides, connected
Yeah.
them manually, did it all very Wizard of Oz style. And that lets you really understand the dynamic, what's a good session, why will people refer people to this program. So I would strongly recommend founders to do everything by hand in a very unscalable way as soon as possible, because you just learn a lot. At the start, the learning is the most important thing. Like talking to every single person to understand that demand is huge. So force yourself to do things by hand as much as you can.
Okay, so everyone, I'm having an Andelicious moment. Hold on for a sec. Did you take that in? We're talking to a product design genius. So, all of that, that is so important.
Yeah.
First created in a very unscalable.
Yeah. Yeah. Almost like cheap bootleg, like very, very raw, because then you're really testing the demand that way. It does not need to be perfect. It just needs to work.
It doesn't need to be perfect, folks. It just needs to work. We have a local group here, but they serve folks around the world called Forge. And they're the same way. They help founders take a prototype or take an idea and turn it into a prototype and then an MVP. Yeah. And they, as long as you show up with, things that are duct taped to toilet paper rolls, they don't care. Yeah. As long as you have that idea in a way that they can look at it.
Yeah. Most startups, even at like millions of dollars of revenue, are duct tape and love still. Like, you'll be surprised. So don't let that stop you.
That is so great. Yeah. And what about your background, right?
Yeah.
That we talked about earlier, ties into what you're doing. Like, how do you see yourself uniquely prepared for this role, Kirk?
I think my background is around building teams and then also building tools to make people better teammates, whether that's like a calendar app at Microsoft, leasing management at like Hightower, or even Randy's role as like a recruiting platform in Dropwell. I think it's always about building teams and what are the tools required to build good teams and good teammates. So like Merit's thesis is like, eventually we're all coworkers. So how do we all eventually become teammates, and what's the tool and platform to do that? So building a very frictionless and impactful mentorship platform is kind of my thesis statement on like a decade's worth of work working in tech, right?
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, because I always think of Slack. Everybody, do you know the story behind Slack, where these guys were trying to create a game, all right? A video game. They went through millions of investors' dollars and failed miserably, right? And then they said, well, what about this tool that we use to communicate with each other?
Yeah. And like mentorship is kind of like a game. There are roles and rules, and there's a good session and a bad session. And our software is really around creating a game that anyone can play, right? Regardless of what happens.
Well, and it's a lot of fun. And as a mentor myself in the startup world, right? I belong to local as well as international mentor programs. I know how important mentorship is. Yeah. Having been mentored as a founder, I really know how important mentorship is. But I've got to be honest with you, Kirk. I've seen a lot of companies try to figure this out. And so why is your approach different? And after you created the MVP, how did you prove your value prop?
I think our approach is really focusing on the under network tech worker, which is the vast majority of people from all these different groups that don't have a network. And I think our big differentiation is really, we have a mentorship to sponsorship business model, where essentially using Merit makes you more qualified and kind of highlights you to recruiters. So we're actually rewarding people for giving and getting help. So I think both the business model and our actual segment are like kind of the key differentiators. There are a lot of mentorship platforms, but that's why people actually pick Merit, is that's for under network people, and using Merit will actually make me more qualified and get me a job, which is huge.
That is huge. And then you said, that whole process, right? Of the mentor, all of that. Talk a little bit about that journey. Someone comes on the site, and also and how you actually recruited folks to come on to the site.
The first were referrals by hand. We asked them to refer. It's essentially in a few clicks, you can create a mentorship platform and share it out. And on the member side, think of it as like Airbnb for mentors, essentially, right? Like a beautiful gallery to kind of browse and go through, and you can kind of pick people that have opted into topics.
So you mean you can have like a nonprofit organization come on and set up their own?
It's all individuals. Individuals sign up
Okay.
with mentors and mentees. Yeah.
Okay. And
Yeah.
so I'm trying to understand that, the revenue model for that. So
Yeah.
as
It's
you,
free for everyone. And we charge recruiters to talk to the people who use Merit, which is kind of cool, right? Super diverse, super technical, all vetted by mentorship. So it's almost like you can just talk to the people who actually use the platform. So again, it's very meritocratic where you reward people for doing the activity. So we charge tech companies to source from Merit. That's how we make money.
oh my gosh. See,
Yeah.
that's brilliant. While adding so much value
Yeah.
to not just the under-networked tech worker, but the mentors. Talk a little bit
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah, because the mentors use Merit as a way to network and meet people. They don't just do it out of pure altruism, even though they like it. But it's also for a way for them to turn their mentorship into sponsorship. They can give feedback and refer people and actually get them jobs. So it kind of takes pressure on them to kind of solve everything as a mentor, which is really cool.
That is really cool. And there's so much value in mentorship. Don't you agree?
Totally. It's multi-purpose.
Yeah. What's some of the feedback that you get from folks who are mentors on your platform?
Individuals get to diversify their own networks by using Merit. And a lot of them just get better at being managers and leaders. Like mentorship is almost a prerequisite in being a tech lead and being a director of management. So it's almost like a stepping stone, like the year one in being a senior leader. Mentorship is one of the best ways to level up.
Oh my gosh. Folks don't think about it that way, but it's true. And those of you who had worked in corporations that have mentorship within the corporation, right?
Yeah.
It benefits the person mentoring 100%.
Totally. It's two ways. And a lot of the people on the member side, right, they come from small startups. They don't have big networks, not from big schools. So like they don't have that big, they didn't work at Microsoft to tap into all these people. So Merit is like the crowdsourced version across all those different other companies, right?
Oh my gosh.
And we've seen really cool journeys where members become mentors as they've learned Merit and they've gone on the other side and giving it back. And eventually now they're hiring managers and now they're sourcing on Merit. So like the full life cycle is kind of happening on the platform, which is really cool.
And nobody should start a career alone.
Yes.
I believe, right?
Totally.
There's so many things to figure out. I always laugh over the startup story for Square, for the website building platform. I mean, he figured that out, like senior year in high school, freshman year in college, so that when he really started to expand, he had never, ever worked at a company or hired anybody.
Totally.
He needed a lot of mentorship.
Yeah.
But you had to figure out a lot of things that many founders have to figure out because you and Randy, very seasoned, you brought a lot of experience to the plate. You might have been feeling a little sense of urgency after your year of spending all your savings.
$0 in the bank account. I feel that.
Exactly. But you had to figure out, yes, we want to go with the under network, but that's also a very big audience. And you need to have that attainable market, folks, first. You have to think, well, who can we go after first? And then how can we expand into a more sustainable market? Can you talk a little bit about that process and also how you reach people? Because there's this thing called the distribution channel.
Totally.
I mean, you can envision the truck taking product from A to point B, but you, especially if you're a SaaS company, you need to be able to take that idea and your platform to folks, and you have to have a channel to reach them. So that's a two-part question, I know. So like what skinny, I call it this, I shouldn't call it skinny, but that slice of customer that you went after, and how did you get there to them?
The under network segment took a lot to define actually and get crisp on that. So that was huge. And I think focusing on product design, engineering parts, the communities that we were part of was also huge. And then scoping it geographically, US and Canada, being very specific, we went hard in New York. A lot of our users are still in New York because we live in New York. So being very, very, very specific, like the tighter that initial segment, the faster you'll grow. And I think looking back, we were a little bit loose with it. We were like first year under network, US, Canada, product design, engineering, like being so specific with who could use your platform actually allows you to grow faster, which is counterintuitive. But for me, it took us a long time to kind of get there. That's the one thing, if I were to go back in time, I would do a little bit faster.
Well, that's good to know. And did you put together the typical customer persona? Did you think about that?
We just interviewed a lot of people and tried to pull out key points and things like that. So we interviewed like 100, 200 people, right? All first year tech workers, all through our existing network, through cold outreach and LinkedIn. So just going again by hand, right?
Excellent, folks. I'm going to just pop this up.
Yeah.
If you haven't done it already, here's a great customer persona exercise. Shoot me an email if you want it, but it really helps you understand who your customer is, what motivates them, what their goals are, their behaviors, their expectations,
Yeah.
everything. Because psychodynamics is so important for the deep dive into who you are serving, right?
That's excellent. Customer personas are great. Journeys are great. That's all really good stuff.
Yeah, it really is. And so then when you went to reach them, and now you've got all this data, you understand your customer and you figured that part out. What was the channel? Like, where were you finding them? I mean, you can't go on as an avatar in a game.
So where did they hang out? Like they
Yeah.
hang out in Discords and Slack groups and forums.
That's right.
So we went to those communities, Dev Color, Women in Product. We promoted and recruited and sourced from there. So like literally just go to where they hang out. It's not more complicated than that, right? And we did that by hand for like the first 400, 500 people. We just went to all these communities, talked to each person.
And when you say by hand, what do you mean? We did
like
that by hand.
It's not a scalable thing. Like Randy and I
Right.
just did it. Like we just went to these communities and did it. I think over time we went to more scalable channels, like through content marketing or channel partnerships. But at the start, you just need to get to like 100, 500, 1,000. Doesn't really matter how you do it. So my advice is to like, again, feedback to the past version of myself. Don't overcomplicate it. Like just be as simple as possible. It just might be hard.
Mwah! That's brilliant advice. And folks, as a mother of a Zoomer, a Zed, he tells me I'm the only one who texts him. I go, what? He goes, no. I go, well, how do you communicate with your girlfriend and all your buds? And he's like, Discord or, I mean, places. It's just, they're just not on the traditional places that we hang out.
Totally. But that's where they hang out. Those are traditional places for them. So go there.
Like, but how do you hop on Discord and start a conversation? I'm just curious. Minds want to know.
You just join the communities. You become a good member of the community. You ask for help. You don't spam people. You get banned if you spam people.
Right.
And then if you see organic opportunities to share your product, you should share it. So people ask questions like, hey, try Merit, or like, hey, someone share this. Just be as organic. Don't be weird. That's like the basic idea. It's like, don't be weird.
But it's not like Reddit. Reddit is gathering information.
It's a bit like it. It's a little bit more human. It's a bit more conversational. Think of it as a Slack with people you don't work with. That's kind of what Discord is like, right?
Thank you for that, Kirk.
Yeah.
We appreciate the upgrade in our own knowledge here, folks.
I'm 34. I'm not that young too, so I'm learning this in real time.
He's not that young. I have shoes older than you. That's perfect. That's perfect. Okay, so what happens a lot, like when we launch and we do all our research, and there you are in Discord, and you're starting to really get the tech smoothed out in your platform, but the customers start coming on board, right? And they start using the platform, and then you get informed, right, in different ways. What did you learn, and did you end up improving things, or did you end up pivoting a little? What happened?
I think it was less pivots, a lot of just reducing friction. I think people are very busy, so every single step is a point of friction. I think two interesting insights I've learned is it's much easier to convince people to be mentors than it is to be mentees, which feels kind of counterintuitive, but getting people to ask for help is the bigger product and design exercise challenge. And almost adding more friction and asking for help creates higher quality sessions. So like making people ask more questions to ask for help creates better sessions. That was like the big takeaway there too. So don't make it open-ended, add structure and guidance and rules and things like that. But it's kind of counterintuitive, but it's harder to get people to use a free mentorship platform than it is to convince people to be mentors, which feels weird now.
It does, and counterintuitive, but boy, does this come back to something that we always talk about here on the show, which is, folks, you have to ask.
Yeah.
You just ask. The answer is always no. The questions go unanswered if you don't ask for help. It is so important for any aspect of your life. And it is okay. No one is going to judge you for not knowing. That's a big barrier for so many people. I should know that. No. A, and B, you are a gift to the mentor, because a mentor who can share their knowledge and give you a lift feels wonderful. So why not give a fellow human that opportunity by saying, help me?
And you're teaching them, they're learning a lot too. And like, it's multi-purpose, but asking for help is huge, especially for junior first-year tech workers. Like the amount of education and onboarding and just being like, people aren't going to bite. Like, don't be scared. Like, people want to help you. It's very funny, but it's still true.
It's so true. And guess what, folks? You are getting paid to learn. I
Yeah.
mean, when you're coming on as a junior or anything, you are actually on salary to learn. And the company usually wants you to stick around. So they really want, mentorship is real important to them.
Yeah.
And Ruth has said she just joined Discord and she promises that she'll not be weird.
Yeah.
Okay.
And like learning and asking for help and asking questions is the fastest way you can grow and kind of increase the trajectory of your career. And like that's what people look for like good mentees, for good direct reports, is like, will they unblock themselves, right? Like
Right.
Merit's almost like a career debugger, right? We give you this network to kind of use to debug with, right? But you have to ask questions. The debugger only works if you like set breakpoints or ask specific issues. So
That's
it is
right. And that's
still the
structure.
onus. Yeah, you have to still use it, right?
I love that, career debugger.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
And we want to get a great start off on our career. If for no other reason, you may not be in the right field, or you may not be in the right industry for you. And to have a mentor who can see things that you can't see yet, so important.
Totally. A lot of it too is like career navigation or career like triangulation, which is like, I would just love to talk to 20 product managers to be like, what is the actual job like? What is it actually like to be a tech lead? What is it actually like to work in health tech? So a lot of it is just access to people. You talk about role models, right? Like maybe I would have found entrepreneurship earlier if I had entrepreneurs to talk to, right? I just don't know because I didn't have access to that network. So we think of it also as like activating PMs and designers and engineers, like activating people into the industry. So that's also a use case of Merit.
That's a beautiful word, activate, when it's
Activate.
positive. Versus when somebody has a bias and they activate you because of their bias, but to be activated because, wow, I'm seeing the possibility that I never thought, or the opportunity that I never thought.
Yeah.
And, and then you find out, again, you're not siloed, folks. You get to have an opportunity where people are there to help you, and you feel less isolated because anybody, you know how hard it is when you're the new kid on the block, right?
Yeah. And a big part is talking to someone that looks like you. Like a lot of the feedback we get is like a woman. I mean, I'm a Black person wanting to be an engineer. Like that's a huge kind of understated part, but be able to talk to someone where it's not a huge jump to visualize I could be that person, right? In a couple of years or in 4 years. Or
right.
5 years.
And what I love about it, Kirk, is so much emphasis for decades, maybe centuries, have been placed on these pedigree degrees.
Totally.
When this generation of Zeds, Zoomers, young millennials know that it's not where you went to school, it's what you've built.
Yeah.
It's what you've coded. It's what you've created. Nobody cares. Do you know how to do this? Can you deliver? Can you grow? Your GPA at some school, maybe you need that to get a different degree, an additional degree, but this is where we're going to see our educational system shift, right, Kirk? It's going to be, I need to learn this in order to do that. That's what I'm looking for.
It's a lot more empirical, a lot more project-based, a lot more building, but I also think it's a lot more collaborative. Like, am I a good person to work with? Am I a good teammate, right? Who do I know who wants to work with me? I think those are huge factors as well. So I think like, life and work are like, they're group projects, right? Very few people do it alone, right? So Merit also trains you a little bit about like, how can I be a great teammate, a good member, a good part of this like group project, right?
Oh my God. Life and work are what? Is that what you said?
A group project. This is my beef with like university. It was so much solo assignments.
Yes.
And then you get into the real world and it's all group projects, right?
Okay. Well, folks, I'm going to stitch that on a pillow. Hold on. Life and work are group projects, everybody. Enough with this, I'm a maverick on my own stuff. No, you do so much better when you collaborate. Yes, Kirk?
It's true.
And as a team builder, that's what you want. And you want to get those skill sets in order to get everybody building and collaborating together and know. And I've got to tell a quick story. I went to an all-women's MBA program. And the thing they did to try to sort of beat this out of, because women, historically are individual performers, right? And that a lot of times, especially at my age group, that's how we were trained. We didn't have a lot of the sports to show collaboration. And what they did is they put us into groups of 5 and gave us way too much homework assignments and project assignments.
Interesting.
Never do it on our own. It was wonderful. I'm all about that collaborative, but for some women, it was like, they're not gonna do it as well as I could, and they, you have to let go of that.
It's true. It's true. And also you learn by working with other people. Like that is the fastest way to learn. You're not going to learn. Merit wasn't built. We just stayed in our rooms and hacked it out, right? We talked to like thousands of people to build Merit. So that was a huge part of it.
I love that. And so you talk about how Merit is self-funded.
Yeah.
Explain that.
It's funded through angel investors. It's a community around essentially investors, employees, and users are all kind of from the same pool. So we've had mentors invest, investors become mentors. Our model is, democracy, democratizing the professional network. We also want to democratize the cap table. So as Merit grows and increases value, we want our user base and our team to be part of that distribution. So it's just a much more democratic approach to capitalization of a company.
I love it. Will you use a Reg C so anybody can slap down, $200?
We essentially use an RUV. We're thinking about doing the larger amounts too, but the beauty is we're for tech workers, so they can do a slightly higher check size than if you were just doing it in a normal platform.
I love equity crowdfunding for that reason. First of all,
very powerful.
Pardon me?
It's very powerful.
It feels great, because Warren Buffett always talked about be an owner, right? And that's how he viewed the stock market. Well, this is be an owner of a company, and you could go buy, a new pair of sneakers or go out to dinner, but you could also take that money and put it toward a dream, toward a mission, toward a purpose.
Yeah.
And you could actually make a nice, 10x your return. And, nothing wrong with that.
We've had members invest, mentors invest, vice versa. We've had members become workers on our team. So like we have a much more kind of fluid approach to company building versus like very strict roles. So I think that's the fun part about Merit.
And it sounds like it's all people who are aligned with your vision. So your cap table is with people who believe in you and your ability to execute and implement.
The beauty of Merit is the team, the user base, and the cap table, majority women, majority people of color, looks like America kind of in all dimensions, right?
Yeah.
So that was a huge win, and it's easier to do it in a democratic kind of funding model.
It's so important. And we all want that. We want to democratize investing, period. We want this chokehold on especially diverse founders not getting funded is ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think a lot of these, like, the new ideas are not going to be built in kind of like the older systems too. So sometimes you have to prototype and try these new models. And it's just a lot more fun. A lot more people are involved in the project, right? Like, our cap table is our go-to-market. All of our investors redistribute and kind of share Merit in their community. So that's also huge too. So also certain things become easier.
That's right. And so you're also getting the brain capital.
Yeah, totally. So many people, like, we list every single investor on our website, right? We're incredibly transparent. So like hundreds of people have helped build Merit, not just the people that work on it day to day.
That's so great. So everybody's involved. And what was I going to say about that? I had a great question. Then I just went right out of my head because I was picturing that list of all those investors and people who were bringing their deliciousness to the vision. But, and of course, I talk about this a lot on the show, MailChimp being one of my favorite examples of people who are just like, hey, we're going to grow. Slow grow is okay. We're going to be about the team. We're going to be about self-funded, with some angel money, et cetera. But we're not going to get caught up in the illusion and the glorification of venture funding.
Yeah. And I think it's like every journey is different. You have to set your own definitions of success. I think whatever is required for you to get to the next milestone, don't just blindly copy what everyone else is doing. Think a little bit deeper about like why certain strategies work for you. So we picked a strategy that works for us. It may work for you, may not work for you. It just depends.
That's right. That self-knowledge is so important. So what does Merit look like? I mean, I can only imagine what you thought it would look like 2 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And here you are today. What does it look like in 24 months? What are you thinking is going to happen?
A lot more people on the platform. I think us expanding out of product design and engineering into the more business side, product marketing, sales, customer success. A lot of the tech team works with the marketing side and the sales side. They want to work together. Why shouldn't they be able to talk to each other on Merit? So I think expansion is really the big goal that I'm in right now.
Expansion is something we all love. Let me know, and I can throw some
who
money
doesn't
in.
like expansion, right?
Okay, but also what's great is that in this vision of where you're going to be is you're absolutely right about marketing versus engineering. Okay, because they need to work together. How great to make that easier so they're not siloed.
Totally.
and have more of not just a bridge, but reducing that friction that can come up in ownership of a project, or what are they doing in marketing? They never do it right. And what are they doing in engineering? They're dropping the ball.
Empathy and understanding for the role is huge, right? Because we do that within product design and engineering. Why should we not just do that for everyone in the company, right? So that's huge.
Yay. And so expansion is important right now. So let's talk about, because I'm seeing where the platform is going. Is that like 20,000 members, 30,000 members? Do you have a number that you're holding out there?
In the next year, we want to do 20,000. Yeah, we want to like 4x. We kind of 4x in the last 6 months, mostly a lot through kind of the tech layoffs, which has been chaotic, but also very good for Merit as well.
Timing is everything, Kirk.
Timing is everything. Yeah, expanding heavily in the U.S. and Canadian market, but going to the other side essentially, which is like the marketing side.
Folks, I'm throwing up an image for those of you on the podcast. I meant to throw this up sooner. Here are those two co-founders. Look at these happy campers. Aren't they amazing? This is so much fun. And that co-founder relationship, as you both, make these decisions, right? On the vision, you both are aligned with how that looks, that expansion looks. And do you go out how do you up your co-founder game? How do the two of you get better at what you're doing?
Constantly give each other feedback, and then I think talk and work with other founders at the same stage or the stage beyond. I've mostly grown as a founder by talking to other founders. Like today in our retro as a team, I went through my calendar because I'm doing too much, and I gave feedback on like what should I delegate or automate. So like asking for help, it comes back to that as well. Like asking like, hey, I'm doing too much. How can I get help? So constant feedback, surround yourself with peers, ask questions. That's how you level up.
And folks, I cannot say this enough. Peer support group as a founder is how you will succeed. There's just nothing else like it out there in the world. Your loved ones are often watching you like you're a train wreck about to happen. I mean, they are excited for you, of course, but it's not their jam. So there's a lot of nail biting on the side.
And it's hard for them to empathize fully. And I think it's unfair for them to empathize fully. I'm sure you've gone through this too, where it's such a insular, emotional, psychological thing that it's really hard to explain to someone else. But you're also not alone. There's like lots of founders and small business owners. So you just got to find that peer group. And I realized it was almost unfair to expect like my parents or my brother or my wife to really understand, but rather other founders will understand. So finding that peer group, and
especially when you figure out something, you come home, I figured out, and they're like, yeah, okay. It's not the same as when you go to somebody who understands. They're like, what?
Whoa, yeah. And it's also just like, explaining why things are hard is really hard to other people that don't get it. Like the risk level and the stress level is just different, right?
Right. And other people are like, why are you doing this to yourself?
Yeah.
Like, why would you ever do this? And you're
it sounds so hard. Why are you keep like
But that's why your mission has to be bigger than all the pain and the suffering you're going through. And so important. Oh, this is some great information. And I know founders who are tuning in are just going to love hearing how you and Randy have brought Merit to life and executed and implemented. Who do you want to give a shout out other than the Belinda who, brought you two together? Who else would you like to give a shout out? Because folks, this myth out there that you're, quote, a self-made person. No.
I mean, every single person that's ever signed up and used Merit, all of our investors, all those people, every single person I worked with, like thousands of people. But a big shout out is actually to my wife, who's been incredibly supportive, Donnie. I think people who believe in you when your ideas are very dumb and not fully baked are the people that you kind of look back and you're like, I couldn't have done it without them. So I think the spouses are like the unsung hero for all kind of entrepreneurs. Huge.
Agree 100%. And the thing that folks, I want you to also remember is that I thought I had a graphic for it. Here's the scoop. Coach me and I will learn, challenge me and I will grow, believe in me and I will win. And that's what you need. You need, people in your life who believe in you. That can be your investors, advisors, spousal units, partners, friends, but you've got to have, right, Kirk?
Yeah. And there'll be days where you don't believe in yourself, but other people do. And I think sometimes that's enough, right?
Right. And sometimes that's what's great about your co-founder. They can be having a down day like, oh, no, I got this. And then you're going to be like, oh, no, what were we thinking? It's a disaster. And they're like, no, I see how this can work.
Yeah. And I think the co-founding dynamic is interesting too, where you don't want to be stressed out about the same things. So like
Right.
Randy will never be worried about the same things that I'm worried about. So there'll never be a day where we're fully like, someone will always be more optimistic than the other in any given point in the day, which is like a really healthy way to kind of approach building a company, because it's hard and it's not obvious, but you need to be optimistic, but not delusional, but a little bit delusional, but like not too, it's like, you got to find the right balance, like very optimistic.
You need to be delusional, but not too delusional. I'm writing that one down. When did you say that? 44.
Just in time delusion is kind of what I say. Like, just be delusional enough. Yeah.
I love that so much. Oh my gosh. And I meant to ask you this too. That founder peer group, it's one thing for you and I to say, you got to find a founder peer group.
Yeah.
And folks are like scratching their heads. And I do that how? Because, not everybody is in these thriving communities like you and I are, Boston, New York City.
It's true.
So how does one find a founder peer group?
You'd be surprised, founders, if you reached out to them, you go to their website, find their email, add them on LinkedIn. Founders will talk to other founders. I've always found that like super famous ones, not famous ones, they've always kind of taken my call. So you'd be surprised that don't underestimate how lonely they are too. Like I will always take a founder call and vice versa. Like so many people have helped me out. So
don't underestimate how lonely they are.
Yeah, no, it's for real. It's because it's a lonely gig, right? So like reach out, you'd be surprised is my advice.
Oh my gosh, that's so good. And for you and for Randy, I just think this is just such a wonderful team. What has happened when you two wonderful men of color are up against bias? How do you manage that? How do you turn the script or turn things back to the mission? How have you handled those obstacles? Because they're there.
Yeah. They're there. I think we've the crowdfunding thing, like that's kind of like our attack against the bias. I think you have to be creative and come up with new strategies.
Yeah.
I think Randy and I, funny enough, don't talk about it that much in the day-to-day, right? I think because the mission and the work is so around it. So like we think as long as people are using merit, we're kind of chipping away against the bias, right? But it forced us to be more creative and to play into kind of like our uniqueness versus like following a trend or doing what everyone else is doing. So there's actually, when you're going against the system, there's less benchmarks. You have to come up with new things, essentially. So it's a little bit harder. I don't have a benchmark of like community funding and crowdfunding because that's a less common strategy, right? So like I'm kind of inventing a new way to do it.
Well, and this is so important to remember too. And when you're adding this representation on your platform, and what I'm very excited about with Merit is how is your revenue model?
Yeah.
Because so often sites are like, oh, well, you pay the mentors.
Yes.
Or you've got to pay to just be on the platform. I love how you have an open door policy. Like, come on into the room. It's open for you wherever you're coming in from. And then those who want access to this incredible community you've built, they're the ones who are going to pay.
The money is always in the companies. It's always in net new stuff, new expansion, right? So like individuals should never pay. That's our huge part of the business model.
I love that. Was that hard to figure out?
Yes, very hard. Incredibly hard. We made a lot of wrong business models like subscriptions and fees and job boarding. I think it's once you realize the incentives system and structure and monetizing that, it's not about monetizing a behavior or customer, but rather if the ideal flywheel turns, does money come out? Like if the ideal way you want people to use the product keeps spinning, does that spin out money? And I think that's the issue with like weird business models is that you're spinning this engagement model, but the revenue is like counter spinning almost in a different way, right? So I think that's how you want to align it is like if you turn the flywheel, does money come out versus like you have to come up with this other way to make money, right?
That's brilliant what you just said, Kirk. And, folks, you've got to remember, and Kirk's sharing right now, you're going to test different revenue models and you're going to get investors saying, oh, you need to do subscription because we want to see again, guaranteed repeatable revenue every month. And I don't know why I get into the deep voice like that. Jeez Louise.
Because that's what they sound like.
And so, test it out, know your customer, know yourself, and do the flywheel test. If the money comes out and you hear that.
And it's also like, the customers are smart. They know if things are weird. Like people have asked us, like, do the mentors get paid? Why you like when we try these other models? So like, don't underestimate just the sniff test. If the customers are like weird about it, then it's probably weird, right? It's not that complicated a lot of times. Whereas when we explain this business model, everyone's like, oh, that makes sense. Totally makes sense. No issues, right? Like,
and you're an engineer, so it's all about experimenting.
Yes.
But not everybody is comfortable with experimenting, because then they get caught up in their own flywheel of, well, that was a mistake.
Totally.
I should have known better. No. This whole thing you're doing, Founders, is one big experiment
It's a
in the
huge
lab.
experiment. It's a huge experiment. You think I say it doesn't get more real, it just gets less fake. Like that's how I think of entrepreneurship, which is like you have more to lose and there's more stakes, more people, more money, more, all that stuff. But it's still made up at the highest levels. It's still fiction, right? At the highest levels, when you're writing the story to it.
Absolutely.
So trying things out and not being tied to anything is huge. Like,
and of course, the ending is writing itself, because you have no idea what that's going to look like.
Totally.
And you have to remember, folks, and this is me on the video podcasters, I'm bringing my arm up from the horizon up and going up. As you start going out of your startup stage and into enterprise stage, it's new level, new devil. I mean, and that's when you have to look at how who you're hiring, and are they ready to take you to that next level? And maybe it's somebody that you're going to be hiring for your role. It's just, you have to be prepared as your business evolves. Yes, Kirk?
Totally. And I think like what gets you to the stage will not get you to the next stage. And all like kind of the corny advice is sadly true. Like it's actually true. It's just like hard when you deal with it in reality, but you have to be constantly learning. That's really what it is.
So you've been in this chair for a while, okay? This entrepreneurship journey. And as you heard, you and I were talking before we went live about how my feeling is that you always win when you launch a business, no matter what. Please share with everybody, because you had a very strong professional career, with benefits and salary and all. How has entrepreneurship served you both professionally as well as personally as a human?
I think personally, it's forced me to grow up a lot more. Like, I think the stakes are a lot more serious, and a lot of people depend on you. There's a level of accountability that you never get as an employee. But I also think it goes the other way, where you realize like anything is really possible. And I do think entrepreneurship, being a founder, is the best version of myself. And I think merit ultimately is like, it's my contribution to society. Like, I don't think it was the previous things. I think the previous things got me to the point where I can execute and kind of expand and make merit real. So for me, it does feel very fulfilling. I don't really question why I do it. I question why is it hard sometimes. But for me, it's like, it is a realization of my personality, is what I've realized. Like
full expression. And as Oprah says, I always have this quote hanging up here: our goal is to find the truest, highest version of ourselves. And so as we do that, we can go deeper. And as we, evolve and age, we find different expressions of ourselves that will come up. And, who knows what Kirk will be doing in 10 years? Look what he's doing, and he's only 34.
Who knows?
I love
that. Right now, it's very it's self-expressive.
Yeah, I'm going to just say a quick hello to Brent from Ottawa, Canada. How you doing, Brent? And, everybody who tunes in, Brent is a loyal fan of this show. He always swings by to make sure we're talking about not just diversity, but disability and disability pride, and really understanding that folks who may have visible or invisible disabilities also belong at the table. They have a voice, they add value. And, our neurodiverse folks, which we are seeing more and more often, have so much to contribute. And innovation is disability, everyone. So thank you, Brent, for tuning in and stopping by and always being our wonderful barometer check to make sure that we're doing that. Of course, Kirk is completely committed to the diverse aspect of life.
And I think we realize this through our product design process. Like, accessible products are the better design products. So to make merit accessible to everyone is actually a better design for like essentially everyone. So it is not a trade-off. It's actually like a deeper version of design to make things accessible. So deeply resonate with that.
Absolutely. And you know what I need to do a better job at, Kirk, is when I start the show, I need to do identifiers. My good friend Mia everybody knows how much I love her podcast, The Shit We Don't Talk About podcast. She talks about the identifiers. So for me, I'm in my 60s. I have short blonde hair. I've got these glasses on, and I like bright colors. And Kirk's identifiers are?
I'm 34. I'm wearing a red shirt in my bedroom that's very beige, and I'm having a good time. That's
he's a man of color too.
Yes.
add that into the identifiers. Kirk, this has been such a good conversation. I love what you're doing with Merit. I love the name. I am kind of curious, as someone who has had to file many trademarks,
Yes.
how did you get this trademark for the name Merit? Because it's kind of a generic word.
It's a generic word. We don't really have the full trademark for it. We have Merit Technology Co. That's our incorporation name.
Okay.
So I focused a little bit less on the trademarks and focused a little bit more on making Merit popular. And I'm still in the making Merit popular phase. So
there we go. We just don't want anybody to come after you and go, no, don't.
I would love that. I would love a million copycats. That would be my dream.
Oh, well, no, we don't mind the copycats. We just don't want you to get shut down.
Oh, no. I want to say there's a Merit Medical Technology. I was like, who owns the domain? There's a Merit Medical Technologies company, I want to say, in middle of America. So when the time comes, I will get that domain off of them.
Well, but you know what? I was surprised. I'm like, Merit? Like, I'm going to, a lot of people's last names are Merit, but there were very few companies with the word Merit in their name.
Well, now there is.
And so, isn't that exciting? It's a great name and it says it all. And you're doing a phenomenal job with the platform. And you're making such an important difference in people's lives and an impact, especially getting folks off to a great start in their career right now, in their tech career. But you're going to help other folks. And not only that, as I said earlier, it is a gift folks give mentors. Folks, it just feels so good to mentor that by asking someone to mentor you, you are giving them a gift. So remember that it's not a one-way street. It really is a two-way street, right?
100%. I'm a mentor on Merit. Randy's a mentor on Merit. We love it. I still love it. Don't underestimate what the value you're giving to someone when you ask them for help. It's huge. It's gigantic. So don't.
And your lived experience, everybody, you have, I don't care if you've been only working for 2 years, you now have 2 years of working in a lived experience, plus whatever led you there, you have value. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So before I pop you into the green room, any last thoughts you'd like to share with folks?
Please sign up, be a mentee or a mentor on Merit. It's completely free. Product design engineering in US and Canada. It's fantastic. I use it. You can talk to me on there if you want as well. But ask for help. Build out your network. Don't do it alone. Work is too much fun to do it alone. So go do it.
Please spread the word, folks. You see the lower third that's been going by the whole time. get-merit.com. Go there. Check it out. Connect with Kirk on LinkedIn. All the links are in the show notes, but spread the word. You know some folks who are just starting in life with their career that would be ideal for this. And folks, yourself included, who may want to mentor. And it is free and the benefit is huge. Thank you, Kirk, for joining me today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Great founder journey story. I'm so grateful that you came on board. Everyone, didn't we learn a lot from Kirk? Yes, we did. Get the clappers. Woo! And, it's always fun to hear a different founder's perspective on how they built it, right? And how they launched and grew their business. Next on the Startup Life Live show, and that is April. My gosh, we're already into April. Come on. April 4th. 12 p.m. ET, we're chatting with Shubhi Rao. She spent years as a senior executive at Fortune 100 companies and understands how important women-centric spaces are for professional and personal growth. And that's why she launched UpLevel, a global digital platform designed to transform the lives of all professional women through shared experiences, peer connections, and highly curated personalized content. And how do you know when I have a new show? You are a member of the Startup Life Live show right there, meetup group. Go ahead and connect there. And also follow me on social media. Connect with me. Tell me how you're doing. Share your business. Do you need me to share it out there in the world? I'm here to amplify you everywhere you glow and add wind to your sails and open doors for you. I connect folks all the time. Do not hesitate to reach out. And as we were talking about, just ask, okay? Just ask. Until next time, keep glowing and keep growing with your wonderful business. Cheers, everyone.